Welcome back. Mac OS 13 Ventura coming to your Mac on Monday, October 24th. Will this ever be interesting? From what I've seen from some of the beta testers on YouTube, well, even the M1s, there's been a little bit of laggy stuff going on. Hope they solved it all. Going to be interesting either way because, yep, my M1 Mini, of course, does qualify for it. And let's talk about those qualifying and disqualifying Macintosh computers, shall we? So, the Mac models from 2017 or later of the MacBooks are going to work just peachy cream. MacBook Air models from 2018 or later. Why they would do the Intel MacBook Airs is beyond me. They were always wimpy, slow little turdy machines. At least until the M1 Air came out. So, yeah, and they still did a 2020 MacBook Air Intel version because I actually had bought one, which went back within a couple of days because, man, that thing was garbage. Anyways, Apple doesn't make everything perfect. MacBook Pro models from 2017 or later will be fine. Mac Mini models from 2018 or later, definitely going to be good to go. iMac models from 2017 or later, good to go. iMac Pro, all models. That's kind of interesting, but okay, I'm in. Mac Pro models from 2019 or later. Now, that's your Mac Pro Towers. Mac Studio, of course, well, all models, which, let me think. I think they only have two. Anyways, so this means the following Macs, which were previously supported by Monterey, have now fallen off the list. The iMacs from models from 2015. Oh, that hurts. Oh, I'm in pain now. Sort of, but relieved on the other side of the fence, because I did have a 2015 iMac, which originally should have been supported, but I guess the final list has come down, and now it's not going to be. So that kind of sucks. MacBook Airs, models from 2015 to 2017 models. Bye-bye. Okay. So that's not a bad thing, I suppose. But even in 2020, when they made the Air, they did make the 1.1 gigahertz dual core i5, which, like I said, that thing was a turd. It was garbage. But whatever. MacBook Pro 2015 and 2016 models. Bye-bye. And of course, this also means for anything previous too, right? Like before. This Mac Mini 2014 models. Mac Pro 2013 model cylinder / trash can. Bye-byes. MacBook 2016 model. Bye-bye. The 2014 Mac Mini was sold until 2018. While they do still sell the Mac Mini 2018, even today in 2022, you can still buy it brand new off Apple's website, etc., right? Anyways, let's continue on. The trash can Mac Pro until 2019, and the 2017 Mac Air was sold until July 2019. Now, that's a lie because the MacBook Air was still being made and sold in 2020, because I have it on my channel that I actually had a 2020 model. Okay, so they did actually make one. So Macworld doesn't get everything right here, okay? Of course, neither does everymac.com either, but they're pretty darn close. We had thought that Apple wouldn't remove those Macs from the supported list, since people might have purchased the model just such a short time ago. Which is why, kids, I've been telling you guys, stop paying big money for older Macs because they're just not worth the money. Once a computer of any kind becomes unsupported, they're junk. They're no good for anything other than the last operating system you could run on it, legitimately at least. And and yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So the values go down. just because something's old or vintage doesn't make it worth money, okay? I mean, let's face it, anything is worth about as much as somebody's willing to pay for it. So if you're willing to pay out the blood money to somebody, well, I guess even though you're probably getting screwed six ways to sideways, yeah, you're going to do what you're going to do. And hey, you know what? Just hope you don't try to sell it later on, because nobody else is going to give you that kind of money. But anyways, this is how Apple supports Macs. To find out if your Mac will support Ventura, read macOS 13 Ventura compatibility. Can your Mac run the latest version? Well, we've already found that up top here, okay? I've also looked at Apple's website as well. And it was kind of like, well, this is kind of getting more interesting as we go. Some of the Macs that are supported by Ventura may not support all the new functions, which is definitely going to be your Intel Macs, okay? The Intel Macs are not going to support all the new functions. So there will be stuff that either does not get installed, or maybe it does, but it just won't be a functional item. And because you have an Intel chip, right? Because a lot of these models that they listed, of course, are Intel chips, right? So yeah, we had the same thing happen with Big Sur. The same thing happened with Monterey. There were features that were not going to work on the Intel processors. You know, it's just for the M1s and now M2s that are out. And even I'm not impressed with the M2s. Anyways, so wondering how Ventura compares to Monterey. Read Ventura versus Monterey. Well, you can't really rely on the information at this time on Ventura because, like I said, I've watched some beta testers and they have pointed out some things that were sluggy, even on the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Now that thing's got a really nice 4K display on it, ProRes, and even that was reported to have some slugginess. Even with extra RAM installed, it did not really help it. However, like I said, Apple may have worked out those bugs, but we will not know any real answers until Ventura is actually fully out, okay? You cannot totally rely on beta testing mode OSs, other than, yes, you can see some really neat features that Apple is doing. But on the other side of the fence, it's a very buggy operating system when you're working with beta versions. So you really got to wait for the full release to come out and see what really comes down the pipe. So do not even think about Ventura versus Monterey videos that might even be out right now. Ignore them completely, because they're not going to help you until the real Ventura OS is released. Okay? Then you'll know. Now, here's another little tidbit in case you don't know, or maybe you're going to be a new person on the block for an M1 or M2 computer. One of the things that you really got to know really seriously about these things is when you update the OS, there is no going back. So if you're running the most current version of Monterey currently right now, yeah, you can't go back to an older version of Monterey. If your computer came with Big Sur and it was an M1 and you haven't upgraded to Monterey yet, which a lot of people I know haven't, okay, once you do upgrade to Monterey, you cannot go backwards to Big Sur, okay? So no going backwards in versions of the same OS, and no going backwards to a previous OS. Now, that is something that Apple has always allowed us to do with Intel chips. Now, with the Intel processor Macs, I think, because I cannot confirm this, but I think we can still go backwards because these are Intel machines. They do not contain the chip within that would be overwritten to prevent backwards OSs from being used. So on an Intel Mac, you should still be able to go backwards to whatever OS you want to. It should be still your decision to make. But I know with the M1s you can't, because I even tried it myself to try and do multiple OSs, because we've always been able to do that, right? And so anyways, it wouldn't work. I couldn't get Big Sur on, and even with a USB stick, it wouldn't even work with a Snot. I made a USB stick for Monterey when I first got my Mini. You know, you got to be able to back it up and, you know, reinstall. Well, there's no point in it, because as soon as they update to a new version, you can't go backwards to what came with your Mac for even Monterey if that was pre-installed, and that is frustrating to no end. And I called Apple on it and I said, look, you know, like I want to reload my Mac to the original Monterey that it came with, right? And they said, well, what version are you running right now? And I told them, and they said, well, you can't because the chip gets overwritten and it prevents you from going backwards. And I'm like, great, wonderful. Maybe they should be a little bit more upfront and honest about this sort of garbage when they do their big WWDC shows and information on their website and say, by the way, you cannot go backwards to your previous OS, okay? Because, you know, we all had a lot of problems as it was with Monterey, with especially for us musicians running Logic or Ableton or whatever, Akai hardware. We had a lot of plugins that wouldn't work, right? And Akai still hasn't gotten off their butt and straightened stuff out properly. Among other companies, I'm sure, that still haven't got that figured out. And Monterey's about to go extinct, right? I mean, look at this realistically. Every time Apple puts out a new OS, what happens to the old one? It automatically gets discontinued instantly, and then after that, it's just, you know, a little bit of maybe main support, but then it's just going to be security updates for a couple of years, and that's it. Because Apple still has to keep their word to a certain point, I guess, anyways, when it comes to, you know, the time frame that they support a Mac for. But they can also change that too anytime they want. Like I've got Macs that have had up to 10 years worth of support right up to the security updates, where other Macs, we're probably not going to see that. We might see 7 years now. And if Apple gets really ornery, they might even go even less, you know, because, I mean, just our society, the way it's going, everybody wants the newest toys out there, right? And the newest toys require what? Software to run them, right? So, and then, of course, we need updates because not every OS is going to be perfect because they never are. And as soon as we get an update, we can't go backwards. Same as our iPhones and iPads. We can't go backwards on our OSs, okay? So much has changed in the industry with computer, software, security especially. And Apple is really anal retentive with a massive vitamin D deficiency when it comes to having security on their computers that their customers own. They want to make sure that we are completely secure to no end, even if it drives us freaking mental trying to do something. It's going to give a little pop-up going, password please, you know, or whatever, right? It's just, oh, man, I tell you, some of the things Apple has done for security over the last few years even drives me nuts, you know? And as much as I understand that security is a major thing, we need to be protected as much as possible, especially from hackers and stuff. I mean, come on. You got to have some areas that are kind of forgivable, but Apple is just going right over the hilt with it. So it'll be interesting to see how Ventura actually stacks up. Unfortunately, I won't have a machine to compare Ventura to Monterey with because I only own one M1 Mac, and I only own one Mac, period, that actually can run a current Mac OS. And my wife will be upgrading hers as well. So, well, you know what? Maybe I could pull it off. Maybe I could get her to delay her update a little bit, because right now she's also running Monterey on her Mini. So maybe I could do it that way, and we could do a little bit of a comparison. Because I'd be really interested in, you know, RAM usage and stuff like that, especially playing some games. You know, how much RAM is it now using? How much, you know, did it use before? What's changed, you know? It's kind of like Windows friggin' 11, you know. I had 16 gigs of RAM in that thing when I bought my computer recently, and it used up X amount of RAM, and now it's using up an extra 2 gigs of RAM just to get to the desktop, now that I put 32 gigs of RAM in the computer. It's the only thing I changed for RAM, you know? And it's like, huh? This is kind of stupid, right? And this is yet an OS that runs on a minimum of 1 gigabyte of RAM, right, for Windows 11. However, it doesn't mean it's going to run very well. Now, that's the thing. This is why I also tell you people, please do not be foolish. Do not buy any Macintosh computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM. You can't upgrade these things later anymore. We haven't been able to do that in a number of years now. So if you're going to buy a Mac, be smart about it. If you're going to go to an M1, just know that in the iMac M1, the Mini M1, the Air M1, and the Pro with Touch Bar M1, those Macs are all stuck at 16 gigs of RAM max. So if that's what you're going to buy, make sure you got 16 gigs of RAM. Also, make sure you have nothing smaller than a half a terabyte of hard drive space or SSD space. Sorry, those politically correct children who like to correct me. It's whatever, okay? It's storage, okay? Okay, now you can stop your little mamby-pamby stuff. So, with that being said, you have options to go to the 14-inch or 16-inch Mac Pro laptops if you want something that raunchy and hardcore, and you can get them already with 16 gigs of RAM, but you can order them and have them configured with a lot more RAM, okay? And quite a lot more RAM. And then, of course, you have your studios, which can go right up there really well, too, when it comes to RAM and storage capacities. So make sure you have that for your needs that you're doing, right? It's very important to make sure that you have what you need. Because let me tell you something, the base level Macs suck when it comes to RAM and SSD storage space when it's only an 8x256. It's all right if you're not really doing anything other than surfing light duty stuff, and I mean light duty, okay? And you're not really getting too in depth, because more storage does not equivalent better performance when you're stuck with storage on the outside of a computer, because it's dongled to you, right? Just like a MacBook, right? You buy a MacBook, that's fine and dandy, as long as you're not loading up GarageBand, for example, or even Logic on an 8x256 configuration. You'll have a lot of hard drive, a lot of storage space left for quite a long time. And also as long as you're not trying to, edit anything much more than, say, 1080p videos, and you're not going intense in your editing, you will have plenty of storage to work with internally. Because external devices, unless you go to really super fast Thunderbolt devices, forget it. You're not gonna win here. Okay, you're gonna lack performance. The internal SSDs are like miles and miles faster, which makes a difference in getting your editing done and your exporting in the end, over having an external, right? And I've shown you guys a lot of this stuff on my channel already, and goods and bad points to all of this stuff. So, check my videos out. Type in anything Mac and, or M1 or whatever, and you'll find out what we're talking about here. Anyways, so this is where we're sitting at right now. I am definitely looking forward to Ventura. The one reason I'm really looking forward to it the most, I love the Apple ecosystem. So I have like my Apple Watch, my iPhone 12 mini, etc. I will now be able to use my iPhone 12 mini as a actual 4K webcam. Now, I have tried to use a 1080p webcam on my my mini, and it doesn't seem to want to stay running for much more than a few minutes, and it shuts down. Now, these are the Logic Tech webcams. I've also tried Microsoft and a few others, even on the lower end, and at 720p, fine. Because even the Logitech 1080p, if you ran it in 720p, it'll run like forever on the Mac. But in 1080p, it doesn't seem to want to handle it for some reason. And I don't know why. Okay, I've never been able to figure this out yet. But besides, they're sucky cameras anyways, even for 1080p. Just not enough megapixels. But being able to use a 4K phone, because both cameras, front and rear on the 12 mini, are 4K, that's going to give an outstanding picture. And it'll be completely wireless, which is really cool too. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to that part of Ventura, because Monterey is not capable of doing that. So that will be awesome, because I've been itching for 4K webcam capability, but not being able to do it inexpensively and with a good one. Because even Logitech's 4K webcam is a piece of trash. Okay, I've seen the results of it, and I'm like, bleh! You know what I mean? It's just horrible. The quality for 4K is just disgusting on it. So I'm kind of glad I watched enough videos to go, yeah, we're not wasting money on that puke. Okay, we will wait for Ventura. All right. So in the meantime, I have a DSLR regardless, which I'll always keep using. But for webcam stuff I want to do for webcamming, at least now I'll be able to do it and do it in real 4K with real actual megapixels there. So it'll be an outstanding picture. So anyways, guys, that's what we've got for you on there. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I'll do the best I can to answer them as always. And if I can convince my wife not to do her update, I will do a comparison between Ventura and Monterey, and just to see some of the basics and functionalities. I mean, we are definitely getting a lot of new features to Ventura, which will be greatly appreciated and very usable. But it's a matter of how much more usable. But that doesn't mean you stick with Monterey if you don't like Ventura. You have no choice. You will eventually have to go to Ventura if you want to keep your Mac alive and secure on the internet and everything else, right? So that'll be another thing that eventually, one way or another, you will have to upgrade. It won't be an option. But either way, we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's about it. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Ciao.